What do I think of Jeffrey Dahmer? I don't know the man personally, but I'll tell you this, that's a good example as to why insanity doesn't belong in a courtroom. Because if Jeffrey Dahmer doesn't meet the requirements for insanity, then I'd hate like hell to run into the guy that does.
November 28, 1994. Columbia Correctional Institution, Portage, Wisconsin. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, inmate number 177252, lay bleeding on the prison infirmary floor. His skull was shattered, and his breathing was shallow. Minutes earlier, he had been cleaning the gym with 2 other inmates. Now, he was dying. After 2 years, 17 murders, and 16 life sentences, the Milwaukee Cannibal's time had come. No lethal injection, only a steel bar, a pipe, and vengeance.
I'm glad that it's over. There's nothing, any words I say to the victims' families are just going to seem trite and empty.
There were no cries for help, no alarms, no guards in sight. It was just after 8 a.m. when Dahmer stepped into the prison gymnasium alongside 2 other inmates. Jesse Anderson, a man who stabbed his wife to death and blamed 2 black men for it. And Christopher Scarver, a deeply religious man serving life for a robbery gone deadly. The 3 were assigned to clean the facility. They had done this for weeks. But today would be different. Scarver later said he never spoke to Dahmer, didn't want to, found his sense of humor sick, found his entire existence offensive. Dahmer, who once molded cafeteria food into fake body parts, smeared ketchup on them like blood, and placed them in plain view to terrify inmates, was always pushing, always testing, always smirking.
I was branching out. That's when the cannibalism started, eating of the heart and the arm muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me.
That morning, Scarver claimed Dahmer poked him in the back with a mop handle. He turned. Laughter. No apology. Just the eerie grin. What happened next wasn't spontaneous. It was judgment. Scarver followed Dahmer into a nearby staff locker room, quietly, calmly. And there, he pulled from his prison uniform a folded newspaper clipping, a story about Dahmer's murders, the dismemberments, and the cannibalism. He pressed it into Dahmer's chest, asked him, "Did you really do those things?" Dahmer didn't answer. He looked for the exit. Scarver blocked it. Then came the 20-inch steel bar, ripped from a weight machine. A sudden swing. Then another. Then another. Blunt force trauma echoed against tile and concrete.
There are shocking new details about the murder of America's most hated serial killer and how he may have seen his own death coming. Tonight, Diane Diamond reports on the plot to kill a killer.
I am happy and very excited that the monster is finally dead.
By the time guards returned 20 minutes later, Dahmer was a lifeless mass on the floor, his face caved in, his body barely recognizable. Blood pooled beneath his head. His limbs twitched involuntarily. One guard dropped to his knees, trying to check a pulse. Another stood frozen in the doorway. It was the first time many had seen Jeffrey Dahmer truly afraid, and now he couldn't even speak. The correctional staff radioed for emergency medical assistance, but there was no panic, no urgency, only protocol. Some say the officers took their time, others say they knew it was already over. Scarver wasn't finished. He crossed the gym, found Jesse Anderson, and delivered the same brutal sentence. By the time the guards restrained him, Anderson's skull was fractured in 3 places. If you're gripped by the cold unraveling of true justice, or what some believe to be revenge, subscribe now for more stories that take you behind prison walls and into the minds of the damned. The investigation was swift, but troubling. Why were 3 violent felons left alone in a room with weights and cleaning tools? Why had guards vanished for nearly half an hour?
The autopsy on Jeffrey Dahmer says he died from multiple skull fractures. Tomorrow, Dahmer's mother speaks out for the first time to Hard Copy, her first public comment since the murder.
Scarver alleged it was no coincidence. They had something to do with it, he said later, implying prison staff allowed it to happen, even encouraged it. The motive, at least on paper, seemed spiritual. Scarver told investigators, "God told me to do it." Jeffrey Dahmer had to pay.
At his first court appearance, Scarver entered the courtroom singing.
Rain or shine, sharing your dreams, your heart and your mind.
But he later changed his plea to no contest.
Yet rumors swirled of something far darker. Witnesses described a bloodied broomstick found near Dahmer's body, suggesting a final, degrading act of violence. There were whispers of racial motive, prison politics, and inside deals. No one answered definitively, and perhaps no one ever will. But this story didn't begin in that gym. It began in a Milwaukee apartment. From 1978 to 1991, Dahmer had murdered 17 young men and boys. His crimes involved sexual assault, necrophilia, dismemberment, and cannibalism. He kept trophies, skulls, hearts, genitals, and photographs. His refrigerator was filled with human remains. When he was finally arrested in July 1991, it was only because his last intended victim, Tracy Edwards, escaped, handcuffed, terrified, and flagged down police. Inside Dahmer's apartment, officers found a nightmare. Polaroids of dismembered bodies, a severed head in the fridge, and acid-filled vats used to dissolve flesh. His confession was exhaustive, chilling, matter of fact. In court, the jury watched as family members of the victims broke down, screamed, collapsed. "You don't know what pain is," cried Rita Isbell, sister of Errol Lindsay, as she charged toward Dahmer in a fury. Her voice cracked with rage. Her body shook. Security had to drag her away.
The families hope to make at least $100,000 from the sale.
We don't consider that there's been closure on the Dahmer chapter episode as far as the victim families are concerned until there's compensation.
Others sobbed quietly. A father muttered a prayer. One mother stared straight at Dahmer, not blinking, as if trying to burn her son's image into his memory forever. Dahmer sat silent, unmoved. He apologized later, but his flat tone made many believe it wasn't real. A corrections officer later said, "He wasn't afraid, he was amused." That made people hate him more. You're 3/4 through one of the darkest ends to a modern American killer. If you're still watching, you know this isn't just history. It's a reckoning. Hit that subscribe so you don't miss the next fall from grace. Jeffrey Dahmer's last day on Earth began like any other. 5:30 a.m. Wake up, breakfast alone, toast, cereal, coffee. By 7 a.m., he was back in his cell on D Block, waiting for guards to escort him to his morning janitorial shift. He had been in the general population for just over a year. The first 12 months of his sentence were spent in solitary confinement, 24 hours a day, no contact for his safety. But Dahmer had requested to leave isolation. He said that the silence was driving him crazy. And maybe he meant it. By all accounts, Dahmer had resigned himself to death. He had told inmates he didn't expect to live long. He told his lawyer he was ready to die. Told a minister that he hoped God had forgiven him. Earlier that year, Dahmer had been baptized inside the prison chapel, his body dunked in a whirlpool tub surrounded by guards. Some said it was performance, a ploy for redemption. But to others, it was sincere, a man trying to cleanse an unclean soul. His father, Lionel Dahmer, had begged prison officials to protect his son. "They're going to kill him," he warned. He wasn't wrong. In July, another inmate had tried to stab Dahmer in the chapel. A shank, a failed attempt, but the writing was on the wall. That November morning, after cleaning duties began, Jeffrey Dahmer walked into the prison gym one last time. He would never leave it. At 8:10 a.m., a guard discovered his body. He was rushed to the prison infirmary and then transported to Divine Savior Hospital in Portage.
It is something that we did not expect, and had we been aware of something pending, we certainly would have taken preventative action.
Doctors tried. Paramedics worked to revive him. But at 9:11 a.m., Dahmer was pronounced dead. Cause of death, homicide, blunt force trauma to the head. He had no final meal request, no last words, no goodbye, just silence and blood. Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes left a scar on the American psyche, one marked by unspeakable horror, profound grief, and a legacy of pain. But his death inside Columbia Correctional remains clouded in mystery.
I am happy and very excited that the monster is finally dead.
Was it divine justice? A setup by guards? A racial vendetta? Or something even more sinister? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.